Hey friends, what's up? It has certainly been a minute, so welcome back to my channel. I've been wanting to sit down and film this for a while, and today I'm going to be sharing something super personal and vulnerable in the hopes that it can help other women struggling out there to feel less alone. Before I launch into things, if you're new around here, hi, my name is Ali and I'm super passionate about travel and wellness, particularly women's health, and handling PCOS to live your best life. So for more videos showing some of the best destination and travel tips around the world and tips and advice on holistically healing your PCOS symptoms, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a beat. Okay, so let's get into it. Before I talk about my journey from diagnosis to now, let's talk about what PCOS actually is. So it is a hormonal and metabolic disorder or condition where your body is not functioning as it should. Your hormone levels are unbalanced. Specifically, you have higher amounts of androgens or male hormones like testosterone than you normally should have. There are usually 4 types of PCOS. And the first is insulin resistance. This is where the majority of PCOS women will lie. So that's where you've got more levels of insulin than normal, and your body doesn't process or react with insulin as it should. So it's producing more insulin, it's producing the excess of it, which is leading to things like weight gain, fatigue, like insatiable crazy cravings, and hair loss, and much more. The second is post-pill PCOS. This is where you've got this natural surge in androgens coming off of the hormonal birth control pill. The third is adrenal. So this is where your DHEs, it's a specific type of male sex hormone that is present in both men and women. Those levels are elevated, but your testosterone seems to be normal. And the fourth is inflammatory. So this is where it's causing you to make more testosterone and sort of create those issues in ovulation. It can involve joint pain, fatigue, skin issues, and even like gut or bowel issues as well. Now, it is possible that you can have more than one type, and they sort of can be playing off against each other, but that's something to discuss with your healthcare professional. So symptoms that are associated with PCOS can range from any of the following. Could be weight gain, especially around the midsection if you are insulin resistant. Hirsutism, which is where you have the extra facial hair growth and you've got the hair loss, like male pattern hair loss on your scalp from those excess androgens. You've got a lack of a period, okay, or lack of ovulation there. Acne. Could be chronic fatigue, mood swings where you go from wanting to be bawling your eyes out crying to just raging and wanting to throw things, and struggles with fertility as well. So it's a very sensitive condition, a very sensitive issue, as you can imagine, for women to go through from that diagnosis point to ending up managing their symptoms and eventually being able to naturally fall pregnant, which is possible with PCOS. But one thing that is super important to note when talking about symptoms of PCOS is that the cysts, so PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, the cysts are actually not something that is present in every single woman with PCOS. They are not a cause, they are a symptom. And you do not need to have the cysts in order to have this condition. So that's something that can be often a misconception out there, and it's something that very much this condition confuses the medical community, and there's not enough research or time that's been dedicated or poured into it to really help us understand what it is and how we can go about managing that so we can live our best life, our healthiest, happiest, most comfortable, thriving in our own, comfortable in our own skin type of life. So I personally don't have the cysts. But I have a lot of the other symptoms that this condition does entail. So this condition actually has been referred to as the diabetes of the ovaries at times, which lines up with the fact that the majority of us are struggling with that insulin resistance that, so diabetics have trouble processing insulin. Women with PCOS also do as well. That is why it is imperative to manage your blood glucose levels really well and not be having those spikes in your blood glucose or in your cortisol. But these are all ideas and concepts that I can get into another day in other videos. Knowing and it's becoming more prevalent. You know, some sources are saying 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% of women globally have PCOS. It's super hard to get an accurate figure, as it often goes undetected in a lot of women. So for myself, I am convinced that mine was masked for a long time by an eating disorder, which is definitely a story and a video for another day. But that becomes important and relevant as I go through how I've been managing my PCOS and what the condition can trigger and bring up for me from the past. So when I went through my treatment for an eating disorder at the age of 25, I'm now 31, I began to really nourish my body, start eating well, developed this really great relationship with exercise and food. So naturally I began to gain back some of the weight that I had lost and bring me to a stable, strong and healthy weight and take my body out of that fight or flight mode it had been in for years. But as I continued the process and then I made this big move overseas, I did the whole live abroad in London thing, I took on a lot more stress in my body and it began to fluctuate and change pretty abnormally. I returned home after 6 months, pretty depressed and deflated because I didn't like my life over there. And I started gaining weight in certain areas, but I wasn't really just sitting around eating junk food or making these terrible choices. And at the time, that was insulin resistance manifesting itself in weight gain, but I had absolutely no idea. So some may ask, oh, why hadn't you noticed that, you had PCOS because your cycle was so irregular, which it was for several years, and you weren't having these periods all the time, they were super spasmodic or just an absence of it for months on end. In my cycle, I didn't really tweak to this. I know that abnormal periods is a telltale sign of PCOS now. I didn't really sort of come on board with that thought. Because my cycle had always been all over the place. I was a competitive athlete, always very fit, training a lot, and then it was affected by an eating disorder. So I guess it wasn't until my beautician, actually who was waxing my face, one day said I should go and get my hormones checked because I was having to come in more regularly and there was a lot more growth there than normal, especially around the lip and chin area. Yes, I was starting to develop that awful beard and moustache and was just feeling all around gross. Any PCOS girlies out there, if you know, you feel me. So this was the first sign of hirsutism, a very common symptom linked with PCOS, but I just didn't know it. So I took myself off to the doctor on her recommendation and I got a panel of hormones done and began researching to find a reputable specialist who understood hormones, female reproductive conditions, fertility and natural therapies. I knew just intuitively, instinctively, deep down that I wanted a naturopath because I was determined not to put myself on any sort of medication or the contraceptive pill, as I hated the idea of being at the mercy of these things and I wanted my body to heal and to be functioning well without them. So I found this amazing naturopath and nutritionist who specialised in several conditions, PCOS being one of them, and I booked the next available appointment that I could. And I took my results from the blood test to my first consult with her, and she explained that the symptoms could be PCOS, but wanted to make dietary changes to see if that shifted anything. She also instructed me to get some more specific hormone blood tests done, and I left that day feeling very positive and hopeful that it could be something more minor, but if it wasn't, I could actually handle it with her help. So once I'd had this next lot of blood tests done, I needed to collect the results from my GP. And they refused to give them to me at reception. I had to go and, see the doctor to actually get the results back, even though I just wanted the printout on a piece of paper so I could take to the specialist, but they just would not do it for me. And as my regular doctor was away that day, I was stuck seeing some young bloke with no sensitivity, no compassion, and the worst or most atrocious bedside manner I have ever experienced or encountered. And I was in the doctor's office with him. He asked me what I was there for. I just explained, look, I just need my printout of the blood test results. And then he started going, oh, well, why? And like, what are your symptoms? And I'm going, I've already discussed this with the other GP. It should be on my file. And he kept pressing me with more questions, and I gave it a basic explanation and it said, look, I just need to take this to my specialist, and I'm going to work in conjunction with her to get to the bottom of this. And I kid you not, ladies and gents, whoever is watching this, he pulled up his computer right in front of me, a WebMD page, simply something you could find on the first page of Google. And like, I could do that for myself, and I've been trying to Dr. Google myself for a while. Pulled that up and said, well, from what you're describing, you have 2 of the 3 main symptoms or causes that we need to diagnose, and we only need 2 out of the 3 in this criteria. So yeah, looks like you have PCOS. So yeah, do you want to have kids in the next few years? Because if you do, you're going to want to get on that. And like, just completely, and as I tried to cut him off every time, completely ignored my wishes to end the conversation. And I hadn't had time to process that. There was no compassion or empathy or just gentleness in the way he conveyed that. And it was a very traumatizing experience, having to just deal with the idea that, okay, I've got this chronic condition. Oh my goodness, is that gonna affect me having kids? I really want to have kids later on. You know, how am I going to cope with that? What am I going to do? Like, how do I manage this? It was so overwhelming, and I walked out feeling so just like a little numb and quite crushed. And I honestly just cannot begin to explain how much just simple kindness and simple just gentleness when you're discussing this condition can go, or how much it can really help. Now, ladies, do not stand for this. You get to advocate for yourself and your health. It can be such an isolating and invisible condition, and sometimes it can feel that you are really alone. Like no one can even remotely understand what you go through on a daily basis. You know, the depression, the anxiety, the feeling angry and helpless because you are doing all the things and the weight is just not shifting. It can be so demoralizing when you exercise and you are pedantic with your food and you gain weight from these volatile hormones, and the stress of it all. Stress plays such a massive part in exacerbating your symptoms and can cause a relapse in some of them, which is the current point that I'm at the moment. So you can feel so unattractive. You're not wanting to put yourself out there with dating. You're feeling incredibly self-conscious in your intimate relationship with your partner, if you have one, and your body image trauma. It was huge for me to navigate with my history of an eating disorder and trying to maintain this healthy mindset and healthy habits, even when I feel like my body is just broken and imploding and working against me. So over the last few years, I've made a lot of changes to my diet and lifestyle. So from going gluten and dairy free, higher protein and less carbohydrate intake daily, also focusing on a more resistant style of training, and supplementing to try and address some of the root causes. It's definitely been an up and down journey, one that is always evolving, and one that, I've definitely come a long way from the days of needing to take stress leave from work for a month just because I was legitimately not coping. If you are a woman watching this and you have PCOS, I love you. You are getting up every day. You're getting through it. I see you, I acknowledge you, and I validate and I totally empathize with your pain and your frustrations. Please feel free to drop me a comment below and share a bit of your story, as I think building awareness and banding together in connection and community is so important. And if you are a man watching this, you may have a mother, sister, friend, aunt, partner who struggles with this, and they need your comfort, your support, and your TLC. If anyone has any questions or requests for any PCOS related content and videos, please drop them below. I would love to provide as much value as possible on here. and I'm planning to create a series that talks about managing and healing your symptoms, foods, recipes that are helpful, just for getting that general balance and handle on your hormones. And I'll be going through the motions, trying to restore balance in my body and lose some hormonal weight that I've gained as the symptoms have had a bit of a flare up or relapse due to extra stresses in my life lately. Happens to the best of us, but it's really important to stay on top of that stress and just keep doing the work and keep going forward. Well, if you have made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in. You're amazing, and keep doing you, and I will see you guys in the next one.